get by. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Wise here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I'm going to be introducing formally Amanda Holmes and Troy Aberle in a second. I always like to mention other episodes people check out, Amanda and Troy. And since we are going to be talking about Chet Holmes and the ultimate salesman, I mean, this is a book that The Ultimate Sales Machine, I recommend everyone pick up. So if you haven't heard of it, check it out. So a couple other, and Amanda's showing it, another edition is coming out soon. So other episodes that you should check out. We had Michael Gerber of the E-Myth in the themes of books. We had Vern Harnish of Scaling Up. Michael Gerber wrote did he write the foreword, Amanda?
Yeah.
Vern Harnish of Scaling Up, David Allen of Getting Things Done, Chris Voss of Never Split the Difference. So check those episodes out. They're all on InspiredInsider.com. And this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. At Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their Dream 100 relationships. We do that by running your podcast, right? For me, Amanda and Troy, the number one thing in my life is relationships. And I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. We tell all of our clients they need to be studying the Dream 100, which is originated from this book. And, I'm always looking at ways to give to these relationships. And I found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and the companies that I most admire and shout from the rooftops what they are doing. So if you have thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, you can go to rise25.com. We're happy to answer anything that you can throw at us. So check it out there. Email us support@rise25.com. And today's guest, I am excited. Amanda Holmes is the CEO of Chet Holmes International. They have assisted over 250,000 businesses worldwide. As I said, it's the home to the ultimate sales machine. So many of the things track back to this book, okay? It's voted in the top 10 most recommended marketing and sales books of all time. You can go to chetholmes.com. You could also go to howtodoublesales.com. And Amanda, what can they find there?
Yeah, if you're looking for what's holding you back from doubling the size of your company in the next 12 months, you can take a quick 5-question quiz and it'll pop out for you training that's specifically geared to you.
So check out that website. And we also have Troy Aberle. He runs a life and business strategy company. He's a coach for Chet Holmes International team. He's worked with so many companies such as John Deere. He's helped sell over $400 million. He's used the methodologies from Chet Holmes International to sell $12 million to, this is the key point, right, Troy? To prospects that were not interested. They were hard no's and actually got them to buy. He sold an entire year's quota in 1 week in this specific instance. So Amanda, Troy, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Yeah. He did that like in Q1, just to make that clear. That just happened.
It just happened.
It's still happening. when I first found out, it was $700,000 and we celebrated. We were in a boot camp. He was going through the boot camp. Then we celebrated another $250,000 and we celebrated $4 million and it got to $8 million. By the time that I recorded an interview with him, he was to $12 million the week later. And now we're at over $20 million. I mean, it's amazing what he's doing. So I'm so glad that all three of us get to be here on this call.
And we're going to break it down a bit and what you did, what were the methodologies you used and how you did it. And I want to start, Amanda, just tell people a little bit about the Chet Holmes International and what you do there.
Absolutely. So for all businesses out there, every single day, 3,074 businesses shut their doors. Now, when they actually do grow, 95% of businesses never make it above $1 million in annual sales. Of that, 0.08% get to 10 million. Of that, 0.004% make it to 100 million and beyond. So the difference between those that make it to $1 million to $5 million, from 5 million to 10 million, from 10 million to beyond, is the skill sets. And it's really not about doing 4,000 different things, which we would think, because the shiny object syndrome is more intense than ever before. It's about just mastering. Mastery is about doing 12 things 4,000 times. So that's what we teach. We have 12 core competencies on how to double sales.
Love it. And, for people who haven't checked out, they could check out the book, but a new edition is coming out. So I'd love to hear what has been added to the book. So if they could check it out.
Yes. It took 3 years to do the new edition. I'll tell you, when I first asked what should we add in the book, I wrote it on social and I asked, what would you want in the new edition? And they said, nothing. It's perfect. Don't touch it. No pressure, guys. No pressure. But and I had many conversations actually with Troy as well as I was writing and rewriting. I added a 13th chapter, which is called How to Live a Rich and Full Life. And I had found at 4 a.m. the night before I was about to give the manuscript to Penguin, I found this email from my father that said that he generated more wealth in the last 6 months than he had in the previous 8 years combined. And it was all because of this one thing that was in this letter. I couldn't believe it. So after I found that letter, it took me a whole nother year to rewrite that 13th chapter on how to live a rich and full life, which I think actually is the culmination of this entire book. So it's probably the most crucial of them all. I would say it's the most crucial of them all. But time will tell. You'll read it in August and let me know.
Tell people, for people who don't know, Amanda, the backstory. I mean, you were kind of thrown into all of this.
Yes. So my father started the company in 1991, and in 2011, he got diagnosed with cancer, which I have a healthcare client right now, a $56 billion health insurance fund. And they told me that 1 in every 2 men will be diagnosed with cancer today, and 1 in every 3 women in the United States. We're at that point. So in my experience, it's not just my own, right? So many of us have experienced either ourselves having cancer or someone we love. So he had cancer. We battled a year and a half trying to find any kind of alternative to keep him alive. But he did pass in August of 2012. And there was no succession plan. There was no plan for me to take over the business whatsoever. I was a singer-songwriter. I had just studied meditation with my guru in Asia. And I came back to 6 weeks later, my father passed, and a couple hundred staff looking around going, oh my God, what do I do? I'm not quite sure what to do here. So fast forward a decade later, here we are, and it's a lovely thing, but it was not when I first inherited it.
I'm so sorry to hear all that. And it's a tough situation on so many levels. How do you jump in with a couple hundred staff and they're looking to you for guidance?
Yeah. I study under an Indian saint. Her formal title is Sarva Lokama, Her Holiness Shri 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 1008 Guruji Punamji. It's fairly long. I just call her Guruji. And she kept saying, it's part of your destiny. You can do this. You should step in. Your father worked on this his entire lifetime and he built something really magnificent. You should. And I thought, that's crazy. I actually voiced it several times. Absolutely no. I would never. So I hired different C-suites, CEOs, CMOs, CTOs, CFOs, just to try and fill the void that was my father. I mean, he wasn't in the day-to-day, managing the sales and whatnot, because he had so many levels of staff there. But it was as if a body without a heart had no longer had the heart to beat, the body doesn't operate. So that was really difficult. And then 2 years in, I finally stepped in as CEO. And then that year we doubled our coaching clients that year and the next year as well. And, I've done other things that have grown, and it's been lovely.
Troy, how did you discover Chet Holmes International?
Chet Holmes, when I had been following Tony Robbins, actually, and I was going through some difficult stages of my life where I started out into sales and business, but I'd been already doing fairly well, but didn't really understand maybe the exact way of taking, things really to the next level, to become, I really had a vision to become outstanding in my field. And I really wanted to figure out what was the absolute best technique. And I trusted Tony so much. And I started watching Tony and Chet doing some work together, and they had done a program together. And I started listening to this Chet guy, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I just love everything. Everything that he talked about was so different than what traditional marketing was, what traditional sales was, but I'd also say what traditional mindset was. And so when I really started to listen to his confidence and the way that he approached people and the way he looked at situations, I fell in love with the concept. I then purchased a book from him, but I also I believe there were some courses and whatnot that I had started, and it just became part of everything. And instantaneously, it's funny because back when I had started out in sales, I had doubled everybody else's sales record in the first year, but it really had no reason to, other than just following what was in there in that curriculum or that material. And so, it just, ever since, I've really just adopted it as being the exact way that I operate in business today.
So talk about the Dream 100 for a second, and for people who may not be familiar with that term and how you use the Dream 100. When you think of Dream 100, Troy, what do you think of?
When I think of Dream 100, I want to be specifically targeted emotionally and mentally and physically to the client that I know I can serve best. I want to understand what their problem is, how I can solve it, what is the best way that they need it resolved or solved. I want to know everything about them that makes them make decisions. What are the things that cause pleasure and pain in their life? And really be able to understand with complete clarity and focus so that I talk specifically to them, with them, and get in front of them in any way I can that's non-traditional. I think today with marketing, for a long time, people used to put flyers just in a magazine hoping somebody would reach out. I like understanding my clients so in such detail that I know them personally and professionally, and I can reach out to them and have a very in-depth conversation very quickly. If I can't get to them, I at least know everybody else that's already working with them, and I'll get in front of them. I will get to that client, period.
Yeah. And we'll walk through that scenario that is pretty recent, actually. And Amanda, for you, I know you have a boot camp. You have a core story boot camp and a Dream 100 boot camp. Talk first about the Dream 100 boot camp and how you think about the Dream 100 and what are some of the things that people will learn through that boot camp.
So the Dream 100 is the fastest, least expensive way to double sales. So it's the one strategy that has doubled the sales of more companies than any other. And it really boils down to there is a smaller number of better buyers than there are all buyers. That means that marketing and selling to them is cheaper than marketing and selling to all buyers, right? We go out and we think, I need to generate 4,000 leads. And if I generate 4,000, then maybe I'll get 400 and then maybe 40 will actually buy from me. But I have to spend probably about 350,000 to generate the, right? It's crazy the amount of vanity metrics that we have going on and the excess when we could just target focus on 100, on 5, on 1. We have clients that have had one new client and it generates them $30 million into their business. Purple Line, they're out of Australia. They sell tents that go on the back of an RV. They got one strategic partner and it generated them $30 million a year. We had another, so one of our past consultants, he now has gone off on his own, but Tom Schaff, brilliant, and Gene McNaughton, they had a client that was 60 million. They had 959 clients that generated 60 million. When they analyzed those 969, they realized that only 13 of them produced 91% of their revenue. It wasn't even an 80-20 rule. It was 13 to 90. And so their suggestion was fire 950 of these clients and just go after one. The client thought that they were crazy. Why would we fire 900 of our clients? But they went after four prospects and generated one that generated $100 million. That one client doubled their sales. So it's really being smarter about every step that you take and making sure that you have a solid strategy. So the biggest places where when people understand the concept of Dream 100, they say, of course, light bulbs go off. They go, of course, that makes sense. I would love to do that. But the mistakes that happen are, number one, they don't have a clear goal in sight. They're not really quite sure what they're trying to do. They just know I got to do a Dream 100. So let me grab people. And when you don't have a clear goal, then the list that you choose of who your Dream 100 should be are all over the place, and it's not in alignment with your business goals, your life goals, and who you can truly serve. So that list, majority of businesses are not very good at checking their analytics, checking their data, knowing who is in their sphere, so that they can pick up the best clients possible that are already in that ecosystem. They're just not seeing them because they're not knocking on the door, because the average prospect looks at 5 pieces of content before they raise their hand and say, hey, I want to talk to a salesperson. So, and then the fourth biggest mistake that they make is fortune is in the follow-up. So if 80% of sales are made on the 5th to 12th touch, and yet 90% of salespeople don't follow up after 3 touches, what's the point of even starting if you know you're not going to follow up for what it takes to generate that sale? So you really have to have that pig-headed discipline and determination. So as I analyzed all of our success stories and the ones that didn't work and why they're working and why they're not, I put together a boot camp to help with these strategies, to assist to actually get the implementation of that Dream 100, because so much complication happens and they just get lost in the weeds. There isn't enough time, there's not enough budget, and there isn't a clear strategy in place. So that's what we help with. Yep. The sessions, you're actually building the collateral in the session. So you make the time for the training, you're making the time to make it happen. The budget, I'll show you how you can get your Dream 100 without spending a dime. And then a solid strategy is really where the bulk of the time happens, is let's focus on the strategy. And it's a similar thing with the Core Story Bootcamp, where it's interactive, practical, hands-on, you're building so that you can generate sales immediately. I mean, Troy finished it in 30 days, and within 6 weeks, he generated $8 million. I mean, it's so good. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue for any business, it's one of the most important things they could do as a business. This exercise and this activity, and actually following through. So you mentioned a couple big mistakes, right? No clear goal, no follow-up. Troy, what have you found from you using it? What were some of those mistakes maybe you made or you saw other people making when first, implementing the Dream 100?
For sure. Great question. I think the thing is reflecting back on what's working and not working, and realizing that you might need to come up with a different type of communication or approach. Some people, they love to be sold to, but the real people that I think for my type of clients were people who want to look at the education-based system, because they want to know that other people are doing the same thing as what they're going through what they are. They're looking for example, but they're looking for real world results, not just reviews, but they want to be educated with things that are going to work directly for them and their company and their goals, both personally and professionally. And I think instead of a lot, like Amanda had said, a lot of people that I do training with today, if I ask most of their salespeople, have you actually followed up even after the first or second? No. It's alarming how many never do go back because they're lost. They don't really know what it is that they sell. And to Amanda's point, with the Core Story Bootcamp, understanding what it is that you do sell, what you do offer, and how that you do can relate to that customer is paramount. And then that way you can target that person. So for me, real simple, don't follow up. When you do get a win, don't get referrals from anybody else. And don't have any goals that are going to keep pushing you, because that goal is going to be your why of why you keep relentlessly pig-headed determination, go after it. And if you don't do it, chances are that 1 out of 10 competition is the ones that are doing it already. And they're the ones that keep winning at it. So you need to be able to pivot and be able to, when I say pivot, I mean taking a look at making sure you truly understand the customer's needs and do an education-based investigation for yourself, then take that education and give it to the marketplace so that they know why they're buying from you.
Yeah, I could see that. You mentioned that a couple of times, which is really, truly understanding the client, right? And selling to them how they want to be sold to and educating them as opposed to how you feel it should be done.
For sure. It's not about presenting so much as it is, I'd say taking them through a journey or a story and showing them that, hey, you know what, here's your company. I know this is what you want to sell, and here's who you think your customers are. And a lot of times I'm helping my Dream 100 sell to their Dream 100 is really what it is. But helping them find out little, pieces of information that are going to make an impact on their bottom line. And like Amanda had said, it's amazing how many people are just blanket marketing and hoping that they get 5,000 clients, when in fact you don't have to do a whole ton of marketing. If you already know who you're talking to, go talk to them, solve their problem, and it only takes a couple. I think a lot of people today talk about spending, $2-3 million a month in advertising, and it sounds impressive, but I don't think I can prove that it's not necessary. Yeah, because a lot of people, when we were talking about this before we hit record, Amanda, about people sometimes focused on vanity metrics, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's one of the biggest issues facing SMBs right now. So the three main priorities for SMBs this year are: they want to improve their online sales because COVID pushed all of us online, but now do we really know what we're doing to generate more sales online? The second is improving their marketing results because there's so many marketing mediums. On average, there's 15 marketing mediums, 8 social media platforms, and 5 paid advertising. I mean, it's absurd the amount of places you have to be today as a business owner. And within that marketing, to improve it, the problem is that we're focused on likes and comments and follows instead of dollar signs.
Yeah, totally. Love it. And building good relationships. You see, I have to add that in because back to what you had originally said was, relationships are everything. And that's the thing. When you build solid relationships, even if they turn out to not be actually fit your Dream 100, but usually you're so close that those particular people actually help lead you into closer because they are already connected with that person you need to sell to. I want to talk about, your favorite story, Amanda, when you think of your dad and talking about business, what sticks out to you? Because, he worked with people like Charlie Munger and did stuff with Jay Abraham and Tony Robbins and Michael Gerber, like all the in large corporations. So what sticks out to you that you remember that he would talk about over and over again? Kind of like the beginnings of the company going back.
Well, the way beginning. So my father's first business was quite a failure, and he didn't talk about it. But he did share with me once. And I think it's important to acknowledge that it's not always a win, right? It does take pig-headed discipline and determination. So he was running a karate dojo in the middle of an area of New York where you had to know karate to just get to the location. And him and my mother were so poor that they would have to drink their cereal with water instead of milk. And to go from that to, 60 of the Fortune 500, it's just blood, sweat, and tears. It was his sheer pig-headed discipline and determination. We call it PhD, pig-headed discipline and determination, that helped him create this worldwide empire. And I think it's important for people to know, because he really didn't share that he did it all from nothing.
He wanted the original title of the book to be.
Oh, you've done your research. Yeah, the pig-headed executive wins every time is what he wanted it to be. And the publisher said, nobody will ever buy that book. It needs to be the ultimate sales machine. And he fought because he was quite a fighter. I mean, 4th degree black belt. He debated with them for quite a while. He's like, this isn't just a sales book. How could you call it a sales book? Which I get now, because there are brilliant, it's on the lists for top marketing books as well. Because when you really read it, you realize that there's a ton of Core Story is a marketing strategy. As Steve Jobs said, marketing should be so good that it makes sales obsolete. And when we look at retailers and everybody going under, who's the one retail store where there's always a line out the door? It's Apple, right? They're the number one company in the world. And what has he done? He's made marketing so compelling that sales has become obsolete.
Yeah, I mean,
so my father had a bit of that.
Yeah, he seemed to be a master of direct response marketing and testing too, because he was very successful in radio, right?
My father, oh yes. He was running educational content over radio before content marketing was even a freaking thing. It was unreal. I listened back to those recordings and I re-recorded them in my voice and saying the exact same thing as he did. And even today, it landed, it grew, it reduced our cost per lead by 30% on my Facebook ads just by repeating what he had done. So timeless, just timeless.
So tell people, so what should they check out? I love talking about breaking down an ad. I mean, that sells people stuff, but like they end up listening to it and it resonates. They buy stuff. What was some of the components of that you can share?
Oh man. So we teach a concept which Troy really picked up and ran with so well, which is this education-based marketing, or we call it core story. So how can you, I probably don't want to get into the whole buyer's pyramid, but I'll give you a piece of it. So market data is way more motivational than product data. So for instance, a client of ours was Mercedes. And instead of saying, hey, check out this Mercedes car, it's beautiful, it's sleek, it's everything you want. We know from the buyer's pyramid, which my father invented, only 3% of the people that hear that ad will be interested because it's just talking about you. 3% of the market is interested in you at any given time. So 3% of the people that you post on Facebook are interested in buying what you have to offer. 3% of the cold calls that you make out of 100, 3 will be interested. All of the spamming of emails that happen today, 3% will be interested. That's why it keeps going, because we know we'll get 3%. But what my father did, which was brilliant, is become the strategist. So how do you educate them so you talk to the entire buyer's pyramid and get 90% more attention? So for Mercedes, for example, we started with every 15 seconds, someone dies in an auto accident. And auto accidents are the single biggest cause of death in the world. And did you know that the cost for an auto accident for loved ones is X number a year, right? So whether they were interested in buying a car or not, I've got them, right? And what did I do? I didn't use product data. I used market data. So core story is this blend of using market data because we know that people inherently believe in science. We're trusting science as a society. So market data is that science, that logical brain. And then you couple it with the story, which we remember stories. We don't remember what happened in our meeting 2 days ago, but we'll remember the TV show that we watched that night. So it's that blend of story and market data to get the logical brain, the emotional brain together to be just superior.
Yeah. And, there's an example in the Ultimate Sales Machine. I suggest people check it out. And he kind of runs through an example of talking to, I think it was a room of like CFOs, and how you can work through a message that, listen, if you said this, it will only 3 people will be interested in it. And you keep broadening that message so it actually hits home with the whole room, kind of like what you're talking about. So Troy, I want you to talk people through what you did. So you sold, $12 million at this point, $20 million in what would normally take a normal, regular human, 4 years in that industry in a very short period of time. Walk me through an example of someone says, no, I'm not interested at all, to here's my checkbook.
Yeah, good question. So the way I did it, it wasn't that I was even the one that was just the person. So it's not like I was a superstar salesperson. What I did is I picked specific salespeople that I mentor or coach today, taught them the process, went with them to make sure that everything was done properly, and then closed it. So it's not that, I just want to make sure I'm clear on that part, because there were some really cool people that I got to work with. So it's not just, if you're listening, it's not just me. It's actually the process of just adopting it. But so what I did was I took a look at the first couple people. I talked to the salespeople and found out they gave me the reasons why. And you could tell that they were typical excuses. But I also listened to the presentation of the way it was presented. And it was simply, hey, do you want to buy this? And, and here's some of the key features behind the product. Back to Amanda's point is there was no statistics at all for what was, in the science that was proving why they should be looking at this. So we knew that for this particular client that there was certain things, I called it a punch in the gut statement that came off my core story sheet, and really talked to them about 5 reasons their business was going to experience failure in 2022. And for any business, it doesn't matter who it is, but in this particular case, it was an agriculture producer, and explained to them, here's the 5 top reasons that you're going to lose revenue. And when we phoned them and we said, hey, you know what, we know that you're not interested in any type of equipment, but we need some help here with looking at what it was that we put together. We put together a really interesting research project, and we'd love to be able to show you this. And so could we have another 30 minutes of your time? And so we went there and explained to them exactly what was going on in their industry. What are some of the challenges that were real, giving them statistical data, looking at things that were going to definitely harm them if they didn't take that approach seriously. When they looked at it and went through it, we were then able to offer them a solution, because now they're so educated. Now they're saying to us, so what is it that you guys offer? And to be able to solve that. And we subtly talked about some of those things and went through that part, being able to give them illustration, being able to give them data. And not one time, I guess maybe one time, we didn't get a yes within the meeting. The rest of them were all within, the other 2 would have been within 24 hours, but people literally would look at each other then and say, we don't need to wait till tomorrow to make this decision. If this is what we're going to be faced with this year, we can't afford to take that chance. And so, the truth is most people emotionally are going to make a decision today whether or not to buy something based on, avoiding pain or gaining pleasure. And literally 95% of everything of decisions today studied were based on avoiding pain. So when you can bring up those real things, educate the person, they thank you so much for that, and they become so emotionally involved. The cool part was then, even after the fact now, is taking that, we've grown sales from the original sale of the same customer, because they start looking for other things that you might be able to solve problems for. And they start calling you a trusted advisor. So in that particular case, we had one client here yesterday where we had sold them equipment, but then also sold them consulting services for agronomy and plant health and things like that. Now, as an average, an agronomist in this particular company, they were selling about 160 acres to be able to start out as a test trial. In that particular case, we'd sold 14,000 acres with a full charge to the person who had already said no to the equipment, bought the equipment, wanted even more products and services, and then we were able to upsell them. So the truth is one client was the same as, technically, I guess, 30, 40 other clients that would have done, that you'd have done at a really tight margin, a place where you'd have almost, for lack of better words, I'm just trying to think of the right wording, but, you'd have done it at such a cheap margin just to try and get in the door. For us, we were able to actually sell at a higher than normal margin. So the equipment normally that would have sold at, say, a 2-3% margin, we sold at 12%. Plus also the agronomy services then were at full list price. There was no deal whatsoever in terms of price, because we'd offered so much value. And that's what most people today don't understand. The reason why Amazon's winning is because they're simply selling. And that's why it has to be lowest price. What I'm doing for my clients is I'm selling them on so much value that they accept the price as part of the package.
I could totally see how this goes hand in hand, right? The Dream 100 bootcamp, and then how do I lay this out and what do I do, which goes into the core story and what do you do for the punch in the gut, right?
Right. Yeah, he's a blend of both of them, which is so great. So who are you targeting? that gives the most leverage. So those bigger, better buyers. And then how do you get their attention with messaging that really, like he says, punches them in the gut? So yes, it's a blend of the two. I'm so happy. I'm so proud. It's so wonderful.
No, I'm so happy. Thank you. But you see, I got to add one piece to this. So yes, it's worked for a long time, but going through Amanda's boot camp, I think it was second or third class, something wasn't triggering right in my brain. And it's like I was hearing something different and I needed to be recalibrated. Cool part is Amanda's a very, very patient woman, and she walks you through that. So if you're listening today and you think you know what I'm talking about, still talk to Amanda, because you need to. So when I got recalibrated with that, and then all of a sudden, boom, then the light bulb went off and I started writing. I was just going to turn off my camera just because I wanted to get going. But it really happened like that. It got to the point where I had to look at it from a different lens, right?
This is a funny thing. And I have to tell my team to go back, because there's this moment in the boot camp where I'm like, Troy, are you okay? You're looking a little off. Like, are you angry? Are you all right? He's like, no, I'm fine. Something's happening. Like, I'm looking at everyone's faces, right? I'm very observant. Yeah. I'm watching. I want to make sure everybody's getting the breakthrough. I'm very sensitive to people. So I see him having a tough time. So I ask him, and then he comes back within 2 days and he's like, yeah, I closed $700,000. I'm like, woo, are you serious? Yeah. And then it's just been going from there. It's great.
What holds people back, Amanda, with that? Like, you saw something, with the training when someone's going through it, what tends to hold people back with that light bulb going on?
Well, I have also said this for the next boot camp. I said that this will challenge the status quo. So if you're very comfortable with where you are, then this isn't for you. And that's totally fine. If you're happy, that's great. If you are thirsty for knowledge, if you're hungry, if you know that you don't know everything and you'd like to learn new things, this is a place to thrive, right? Because we'll show you those things. And the resistance comes when someone thinks that they know it all, which, that's great. Continue doing what you're doing. But there are smarter ways. There's always something to learn. We know so little. And the more we learn, the more we realize we don't know, right? So that should be our evolution. And yet people get afraid of change as well. And that's a crucial part of this whole community that I'm excited and fostering is you see it, right? You think, is this really going to work for me? And then you look over at Troy and he's doing it. And you look over at Carrie and she's doing it. And you're looking at Pablo and he just recouped the whole thing in the first week. Okay, so this does work. And they're live human beings and they're all doing it with you, right? So you get this nice community, because sometimes it can be lonely at the top.
Could I add to that too, Jeremy, for a second? The thing that Amanda said it dead on. And I'd say, no matter where you are in business today, before you come into anything, take a look in the mirror and figure out, where am I at today and what would be cool to achieve in the next year? And, and if you're not sure what that is and you're not sure you need to know more, go around and ask 10 of your staff from all levels and find out what they want to achieve and see where they want to grow. And if they could see a way of growing your company or growing that sales target or production target or what have you, and figure out how to become the best of the best in your bracket and do a brainstorming session for an hour, then go apply the science that comes from the Ultimate Sales Machine throughout, whether it be through Core Story Bootcamp or Dream 100, and really watch how fast and exciting the morale in your company will change. Come in there with a personal goal and match that up with a business goal and empower people to go after it.
I love that, Troy, because oftentimes I feel like people think they need to come up with the answer by themselves, but just actually collaborating with your team and just saying, how do you think we can grow when maybe this person's not in sales, maybe they're in accounting or something. They may have some ideas that they've never voiced. So I love that. And Amanda, Russell Brunson, the story about Russell Brunson.
Yeah. So it's been such a lovely, this is a great example of Dream 100. So Russell, before ClickFunnels, studied my father's material. He went to one of our trainings. He learned from my father the Dream 100. Then he started ClickFunnels. Then he implemented the Dream 100 and grew 100 million in 4 years. He's a great shining success story of what Dream 100 is possible, what can be done with Dream 100. But him and I have this, we interact on social here and there. He would say, "Oh, I've done something to celebrate your father. Here you go." I'm like, "Oh, that's nice," But him and I don't have the depth of a relationship. So I've been slowly cultivating that over the years, and some things that I share in the boot camp. But recently, I tell this really, really funny story about him and Dave Woodward, where I've
had Dave Woodward on the podcast too. So.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
They're both awesome guys.
So if you thought like, okay, I wanted to win Dave Woodward as my client, I wanted him to buy a core story. And when I first met him, it was kind of, I don't really want to talk to you. He could smell the like commission breath, right? I so wanted them as a client. And
that's a new saying. Like, I need you a t-shirt with that.
Oh, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So I followed up on social, and I wouldn't have been able to cold call this gentleman, right? Because he has 400 staff and a lot of things to do. And I wouldn't have been able to like interact with him on email, but on Instagram, I commented on every single thing he did for 3 months straight. He would talk about his wife. I'd say, "Oh, how lovely. It's so nice to see your wife." He would talk about his children. I'd go, "Wow, how funny that they did that. That was hysterical. You should probably do this with them next time." He climbed a mountain and he bought shoes. And I said, "Be careful. I've climbed Kilimanjaro. And when I bought new shoes and I went and hiked, it was the worst thing. It totally ripped up my feet. Be careful." So every day I'm in his face, in his place, in his space for 3 months straight. I'm having a blast. I'm laughing hysterically because I am talking with him about everything in his life. He's not really saying much, but I am in constant dialogue, which is the power of what we have today, which my father never had. No wonder, statistically, you're 7 times more likely to close a lead generated on social media than to your website. No wonder, because of instances like this, right? So he comes back to me after 3 months and says, "Hey, we'd love to buy 650 of your Ultimate Sales Machine books, and we'd love to send them to our biggest, best clients. Is that okay?" Yes, of course. Years later, so that's bared its fruit so many times over. But years later, Russell and I have been in dialogue. And to speak to your methodology, I got him on to do an interview for my Dream 100 course, which was lovely. And it's a wonderful interview. I'm so grateful that he said such nice things. And then I continue to follow up, and we were in dialogue, and I'm just trying to add value every way. How can I serve? How can I help? I would love to help. He actually helped me with something, which was so kind of him. I had a real problem. He helped me with that. So we had this good fodder going. And then he came to me in December and said, "Amanda, are you still doing core stories?" I'm like, "Yes, of course we do core stories." He's like, "Well, I'd like to buy a core story." I'm like, "Okay, great. Well, if we could hop on," and this is on Instagram DM. I'm like, "If we could hop on a 22-minute call, I'll just break it down for you." He's like, "No, if that is a sales call, I don't want it. I'm not interested. I'm already sold. So just send me the page. I don't even know how much you'll charge. I don't care. Send me the page. I'll purchase it, and let's do a core story." And I was so shocked because I've never had, an experience with that kind of investment where they don't even want to discuss what the deliverables are. That is a true dream client, right? Where they don't even have to ask you the price. You don't even have to have a dialogue. They just say, "Send me how much so I can wire you the cash." And he recently shared it on his podcast like 2 days ago. And he was laughing about it. He's like, "Yeah, Amanda wanted to get on a sales call with me. And I just said, wire me the cash." And I laughed so hard because at the time I thought that was such a funny thing to do. This is hysterical. And then I realized he's also kind of just playing me, right? Because he knew it would be a good story. So he did it too. So it's pretty funny.
And that's also what both of you talked about. The biggest mistake is not following up. And so it's really, you added value, follow it up, and rinse and repeat. Added value and follow up. And you are a trusted guest and trusted advisor because you're just keep adding value. And so I love that. The last thing, I know we're almost at time here, but I want to ask about the partnership, the Target 12, Amanda.
Oh, okay. I don't know if we have time. We only have 1 minute. I'm sorry. I have a pretty hard stop here. I have to go somewhere. I have to be.
Well, we'll have to save it for another time.
Yes, to be another time. Yes.
I want to thank everyone for listening, and I want to point them to howtodoublesales.com, check out chetholmes.com, and check out the book, The Ultimate Sales Machine. So, Troy, Amanda, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you for hopping on too, Troy. This was so wonderful.
It was awesome. I love it.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I'm feeling like $100 grand.